I want to talk to you about When Devils Sing. It is a book I read earlier this year and I really enjoyed it. So, first and foremost, appreciation for the cover because I love it. I'm very partial to snakes, so that was initially what drew me in. I think it's gorgeous though. So this is a YA horror book, so I believe that the characters that we follow in this story are like 18, 19, possibly 20. Usually that's not my most favorite age group to read, but I enjoyed it. So there's that. Now, quick heads up, I will be discussing some spoilers. So if you want a spoiler-free review, you can find me on Fable. And I believe that review I left there should be no spoilers, just some initial thoughts and takeaways from what I enjoyed. Now, let's go ahead and get into it. So I want to talk about the characters in the novel. There are two particular characters that I really enjoyed, actually. One of them is the rich kid, the son from the rich family. I thought his growth throughout the book was done so very well. I very much appreciated his willingness to step up and to also show up for these new friends that he makes. I think that says a lot about his character, and so to see that unfold in the story was something special. He also displayed great bravery and great courage that I would hope any one of us can find if we are in a position of privilege. So I very much appreciated that. The second character I enjoyed was the kid who he has like half a foot in the rich world and then half a foot in like the normal world. And I loved most about him is the fact that he wouldn't forget where he came from, but he did use his new connections and his new skills to his benefit as the plot unfolded. So I don't know. I love a resourceful person. And I think that says a lot as well about maybe where my mind is if you have the resources to help others and I guess utilize your privilege in such a way that you can move somebody's story forward, even if it isn't your own to begin with, I think that says a lot. So I don't know, I loved it. The other characters throughout the story, I think we get 2-point POVs from the girls in the story, possibly one other POV, but we also are introduced to other characters in there. And I don't know, I had trouble connecting with them. They still did their job as the plot unfolds, but I don't know, I think there was just a little bit of something missing for me on those specific characters. So I have the memory of a pea, so I don't quite remember all the names. And I've read a couple of books in between this, so definitely a little bit fuzzy with my memory, but I do remember the big takeaways. So moving on, now we're going to talk about the plot. Okay, now there was a post I made on Fable while I was reading this, and I think it highlights what I very much loved in the plot, and it was an excerpt on the devils, which, by the way, these three creatures on the cover are the devils in the book, which I think is fantastic. But the excerpt was talking about like the mischief of it all, right? The mischief of the devils. So while the devils are very much tied to the town in this story, they also have their own plotting and agendas, and that was one of the key ways that the plot itself would move along is the introduction of a devil having a proposition. So yeah, I ate that up. I loved it. There were a lot of things happening to the characters. So you were able to like have moments of grief for them, have moments of concern for them, and then to throw a devil in there with, I don't know, devious intentions, you know, just creating chaos for chaos's sake. I just, it was so good. So yeah, if you love a little mischievous guy, that you'll find that in here, and I loved it in here. Moving on to the setting. Now, the setting is, I think it's like southern Georgia, a pretty isolated town, and I think it's like 2 towns next to each other, or like, I don't know. I believe that's what the setting is. But I wasn't crazy about the setting, like it existed and it fit for the story. But when I was reading the author's note on the setting and how they pulled their own experiences and their own memories or verbal stories told to them about living in the South, and seeing how some of that history gets depicted via the town, via the devils, via the judgments that people would make against certain characters. My goodness, I think that makes you appreciate the setting a little bit more, rather than it just being your typical like, oh, it's just a small town vibe. So yeah, I would definitely encourage you to read author's notes on their books. Sometimes they have just these incredible uses of creativity for something that they experienced, something that they have a memory of, something that was told to them, or something they dream up, and to put that into words, to put that into film, art, music, all of the creative avenues, right? To use those experiences, I don't know, it's just a little magical. So while the setting wasn't like my most favorite, I do have an appreciation for it because the author shared that. So there's my notes there. And lastly, the writing. So the writing in this book, I think it moves the story along pretty well. The only parts that I would get a little frustrated with, and this is where the YA part comes into play, is when the characters are sitting in an emotion that you're like, okay, come on, but you know, we're in a horror story, so we need to, you know, kind of let that go and move forward. However, I do find that the depictions of what they were, whether it was something like a trauma that they were experiencing themselves or a trauma that was happening to a loved one, I do think it's realistic, but it's definitely one of those things where you're like, okay, but we're in a horror movie, so let's get moving. We can mourn, we can freak out later. So I think that was the only kind of portion of the writing itself that I would kind of get stuck not really loving. Other than that, I had no problem reading it, and it's just gorgeous. Like, come on, it's beautiful. I would be very excited to read more from this author, or possibly reading more about the devils, or maybe this group of characters when they're adults. I think that would be a fun read. And lastly, I am all for setting a vibe, so I'm gonna give you some music, movie, and TV series recommendations that I think kind of match this book. And I don't know, if you're like me, sometimes when you read or watch something, you just kind of want to stay in that moment, and so that is what I am making these recommendations for. First is music. There is a song called The Devil Wears a Suit and Tie, and 100%, if you were to listen to that song on repeat while reading this, I think it would match so well. The other song, I don't think it matches perfectly, but it still has a little bit of that angst and a little bit of that, like, you're walking a road in this small hometown feeling. I don't know. It's called My Dog, and I'll list them here. Eventually, I'll put together like a whole playlist, but not today. So, there you have music. Now, TV series. So, along with the idea of demons being a little mischievous and a little chaotic, the show that came to mind is Supernatural. And it is what it is. I know there's a few episodes in Supernatural as well where that small town being weird would definitely fit this vibe too. So definitely that. The other one, I don't think you would be able to connect it as well, but while I was reading this, there were definitely moments that this TV show was like coming to mind. I think it's worth a watch. I only watched it one time, but I do think it's worth a watch. Mind you, I am somebody who will try most horror, whether it's a book, a movie, a show, music, whatever is being created, I will try it at least once. So Archive 81 would be my other suggestion. It's a little bit more, I think, analog, isolated horror. So there's the analog, like the video recording element of it, but then there's also the guys in an isolated place. And interesting watch. I couldn't tell you what it was missing because I watched it so long ago, but I was thinking about it while I was reading this. And lastly, but not least, horror movies. So I watch a shit ton of horror movies, and so I could go on and on about recommendations, but I'm going to share two. The first one is going to be a foreign horror movie called Moloch. Oh my gosh, I think it matches this vibe so well, and it even has like the town weird lore happening in the background, so very captivating. I want to say that movie, it's not a jump scare type of horror, it's more who do I trust, and there's this unsettling feeling, and there's these weird things happening, and I can't explain them, and I don't know what to do with those revelations, essentially. So I do remember enjoying that watch. And then the other one, not people's most favorite, but I liked it. It's a movie called Antlers. I remember it was like super big when it was coming out. I forgot what happened with its release, but I had a good time with that one. I think the aesthetic of that movie especially very much fit When Devils Sing, along with how some of the characters in Antlers carry themselves, completely like in line with what I was reading in When Devils Sing. So that is a wrap. Thank you for listening to me yap about this book. I very much recommend it, and I hope you'll stick around for some more horror related reviews. I promise I'll get some movies and shows, even some music reviews here in my feed, but for now my goal this year was to read a bit more because I definitely watch a lot. So yeah, this was my biggest goal, and documenting it is fun in and of itself. So if you've read it, I would love to know your thoughts. If you haven't read it, I would love to know if you're gonna add it to your TBR. So thank you, and have a good night, y'all.